Cape Town is underwater. While the West talks about climate change, South Africa is living it. This isn't just another weather story, this is Africa confronting a crisis that the industrialized world created. And how we respond will define our continent's future. The mother city has been pummeled by unprecedented rainfall in April 2026, bringing the Western Cape to its knees. But here's what the international media won't tell you: this flooding reveals both our vulnerabilities and our incredible resilience as African people. Today, we're diving deep into what's really happening in Cape Town, why this matters for all of Africa, and how this crisis is pushing us toward solutions the world desperately needs. Let's start with context. Cape Town sits at the southwestern tip of Africa, where two oceans meet, the Atlantic and Indian. This geography has always made it prone to extreme weather, but what we are seeing now is different. The city that survived the Day Zero water crisis in 2018, when taps almost ran completely dry, now faces the opposite extreme. From drought to deluge in less than a decade. The Western Cape has historically experienced a Mediterranean climate, wet winters, dry summers. But climate scientists have been warning for years that this pattern is breaking down. Dr. François Engelbrecht from the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research has documented how rainfall patterns across southern Africa are becoming increasingly erratic. We're not just seeing more rain, we're seeing it concentrated into devastating bursts that overwhelm infrastructure built for predictable seasons. Like this video if you want to help more Africans see this critical story about our changing continent. The numbers from this April 2026 flooding tell a stark story. Over 200 millimeters of rain fell in just 24 hours in some areas. That's nearly half the city's annual rainfall in a single day. The townships of Khayelitsha and Gugulethu, home to hundreds of thousands of our people, bore the brunt. These are communities that were already marginalized by apartheid spatial planning, and now they are paying the price for climate change they didn't cause. At least 15,000 people have been displaced from their homes. Informal settlements built on floodplains, because that's where poor people were allowed to live, are completely submerged. But here's what's remarkable: community leaders in these areas didn't wait for government help. They organized their own rescue operations, opened community halls as shelters, and coordinated food distribution. This is African Ubuntu in action, our philosophy that we are because we are together. The economic impact extends far beyond Cape Town's borders. Cape Town International Airport, a major gateway to the continent, suspended operations for 2 days. The port of Cape Town, crucial for South Africa's wine and fruit exports, saw significant delays. But here's the deeper issue: this flooding disrupts supply chains that connect South Africa to the rest of Africa and the world. Now let's talk about who's really dealing with this crisis. The Western Cape Provincial Government, led by the Democratic Alliance, has been praised for its disaster response coordination. Premier Alan Wynne activated the Provincial Disaster Management Center within hours. But the real heroes are at the community level. Organizations like the Gift of the Givers, founded by Dr. Imtiaz Sulaiman, were on the ground immediately with emergency aid. The African National Congress-led national government has also mobilized resources, deploying the South African National Defense Force for rescue operations. But this coordinated response highlights something important: when crisis hits, political differences take a back seat to African solidarity. Subscribe for honest, Pan-African analysis you won't find on CNN or BBC. We tell the full story of African resilience. International partners are watching closely too. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has offered assistance, and the European Union has activated its emergency response mechanisms. But here's what's crucial to understand: Africa can't keep depending on external aid for climate adaptation. We need African solutions for African challenges. This Cape Town flooding is part of a larger story reshaping our continent. From floods in Nigeria to droughts in the Horn of Africa, from cyclones in Mozambique to heat waves in North Africa, climate change is hitting Africa hardest, even though we contribute least to global emissions. But this is also pushing us toward innovation that the world needs. South Africa is already leading continental efforts in climate adaptation. The country's renewable energy program has added thousands of megawatts of clean power. Cities like Cape Town are pioneering water management techniques that other African cities are adopting. We're not just surviving climate change, we're developing solutions. The African Union's Agenda 2063 includes ambitious climate resilience goals, and events like this Cape Town flooding accelerate our progress. When African cities share disaster management expertise, like Cape Town's water crisis lessons helping other cities, we build continental capacity that doesn't depend on Western institutions. Here's the Pan-African opportunity hidden in this crisis. Every flood, every drought, every climate challenge pushes us to work together more closely. The early warning systems, the disaster response protocols, the infrastructure investments, these are building blocks of African integration. Looking ahead, this flooding will reshape Cape Town and influence climate policy across Africa. The city is already updating its flood management infrastructure, investing in early warning systems, and redesigning urban planning to accommodate extreme weather. But the bigger picture is how this experience strengthens Africa's voice in global climate negotiations. When African leaders speak at COP meetings or UN climate summits, they are not talking theory, they are representing people who've lived through floods, droughts, and storms. This lived experience gives us moral authority the industrialized world can't match. We're not asking for charity, we're demanding climate justice. The young Africans organizing climate activism in Cape Town's townships, the engineers designing flood-resistant infrastructure, the community leaders coordinating disaster response, these are the faces of Africa rising. Not despite the challenges we face, but because of how we face them together. This is why Cape Town's floods matter far beyond South Africa's borders. They represent Africa's climate reality, but also our climate leadership. We're not victims of climate change, we're pioneers of climate solutions. And that's a story the world needs to hear from African voices. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for more analysis that centers African perspectives on the stories shaping our continent. Next week, we'll be covering how Morocco's renewable energy investments are positioning North Africa as a global clean energy hub. But first, I want to hear from you. How is your community preparing for climate challenges? What African climate solutions deserve more attention? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's continue this crucial conversation about Africa's climate future.